What is the difference between Southwest Cape, Northwest Cape, Northeast Cape, Southeast Cape? Those are questions I get every day from people that are thinking about making a move here in Cape Coral, Florida. So I wanted to go over some of the similarities, some of the differences, and really convey to you how large Cape Coral actually is. So Cape Coral is actually the second or third largest land-wise city in the whole state of Florida. So it's like 120 square miles, very, very big. And it's basically broken down into 4 quadrants. And to understand, like, Cape Coral is basically a peninsula, and we have the Southwest Cape Coral area, the Southeast area, the Northeast area, and the Northwest area. So just to give you a little bit of an understanding on the areas, the first area that was developed in Cape Coral, like when Cape Coral was originally designed and developed in the 50s and 60s, was the Southeast Cape Coral area. And that's going to be your area closest to get over to Fort Myers, the beaches, all the things. But you're going to find a lot of older homes in that area because it was the first area that was developed. You're going to find very, very, very few vacant parcels of land in order to build a new house on. So if you're considering building, that would probably not be an area you would want to look at. But you're going to find a lot of waterfront homes in that area. Again, golf access properties, even direct access properties. Direct just means that there's not going to be any bridges or locks to get out into open water. Open water can mean 2 different things too, so that's important to understand. If you're looking to get to open water, does that mean out to the Caloosahatchee River, which would be a lot of the southeast area, that you would go on the Caloosahatchee and down? There are a couple of bridges. There's the North Bridge into Fort Myers. There's the Midpoint Bridge, that's the Veterans Memorial Parkway Bridge. And then there's the South Bridge, which is the Cape Coral Parkway that turns into College Parkway Bridge. And they have like heights of like 50 feet type of thing. So if you have like a giant sailboat, even though a lot may say it's sailboat access, you might not be able to get out under those bridges. So that's important to understand. There might not be bridges in the canals, but they're, depending on how big your boat is. Again, we don't see that a lot, but I have had people that have asked me about those bridge heights. It's important to understand. In Southwest Cape Coral, that's going to be an area that's really more been developed over the last 30-ish years. A lot of newer homes in the area, a lot of new construction even still going on. There are still some vacant properties in Southwest Cape Coral, but it's not as many as it used to be. So it's definitely getting filled in. However, the homes are going to be a lot newer than you're going to see in the Southeast Cape Coral. The prices are going to be a little higher in Southwest Cape Coral. And depending on where you land, you can also have direct access waterfront as well in Southwest area. Again, it's going to cost more the quicker you are to get out to open water. So you can go out. They did remove the lock down at Cape Harbor. So properties that used to be behind a lock are no longer behind a lock. So that's going to affect your, ability to get out to open water. Also keep in mind, and this goes for all the areas that I will get to, but what's your lifestyle going to look like when you come here? I have some customers that move here and they know they want to be out on the boat like daily or 3-4 times a week. So to them, it's really important to be super close to get out to open water. Other people are like, look, I'm going to go out like every month, every other month. Especially like if you're still working every day, your kids are still going to school every day, that kind of thing. Like you're not going out on the boat probably every day. So to you, it may be fine if it's a 30-minute, an hour, hour and a half commute, basically to get out to open water. Some people I know never even go out to open water. They just think it's fun to go in the canals, lakes. Maybe they're fishing on the spreader canal. Like there's definitely things you can still do in the canals. But most people, when they think about being on the water, they think, okay, I can from my backyard get out to open water. And that's kind of the idea. But again, it depends on what kind of boat you have. Like certain boats are not really going to be big enough, sturdy enough to go out on open water. Understanding the open waters are really important too. There's boating classes you can take because a lot of times people come from like deep lakes up north and they assume that their boat's going to work, or they assume that The boat that they thought they were going to purchase down here in Southwest Florida is going to be great. And they get out on open water and they realize that the water is really shallow and there's areas that boat just cannot go. And yes, if you stay in the channels and you're, at that bigger depth, you're going to be okay. But they weren't really expecting, like when you're out there and you just kind of casually look, and if you don't have like your sunglasses on, it can seem like you have lots of areas that you could go boating, but then when you actually, either if you have a depth finder or you put on your glasses and you can kind of see, you're like, that's really shallow over there. And your boat could go aground. So it's really important to understand. I usually recommend for people that are completely new here to not purchase a boat right away and maybe either go out with friends or rent a couple boats and then just kind of see like what kind of boat is going to make the most sense. And of course, I would wait to buy the house before you buy the boat, because you want to make sure that the boat gets under the bridges if you have bridges and, all those sort of things. So again, some things to keep in mind. I don't want to get off on a huge tangent on boating. We can definitely help guide you, point you in the right direction for classes where you can get boats, all the things like that. So back to the quadrant. So then we go up to the Northwest Cape Coral area, and that, in my opinion, is going to be the new Southwest area, because in the Northwest, there's still a lot of development going on. There's going to be some new like shopping centers. There's going to be the new Seven Islands project that's going to be really cool. There's the Grove that's going up there. So there's just a lot of new development, and you're going to be a little further right now from a lot of the things, but give it a few years and you're going to have all the things that you're going to need right there as well. Most houses are going to be newer in that area, more vacant lots in the area. And another thing to keep in mind is that a lot of the North Cape area is still on well and septic. People give me so much grief on TikTok about the well and septic and how when city utilities come in, it's going to be expensive, and that, I should be telling people that. And obviously, if you hire us to work with you, we're going to explain all the things in a quick 2-minute video. I can't tell you all the things. But yes, absolutely. They're still on well and septic. Different areas are going to be getting city water and sewer at different times. So some of that, it is scheduled in the next couple of years. Other ones are like 10 years out. So it's important to know, if you're going to be on well and septic, at how long will you be on well and septic. So if you're, depending on what it is that you want, like if that's important to you to be on city utilities, maybe don't buy in those areas that it's not coming for a while. We can look in the South Cape where it's already in and probably paid. Or you can go where it's coming in the next couple of years if that's something that you want to have in the next couple of years. But know that there is a cost associated with that. Right now it's running around $45,000 for city water and sewer to get hooked up. You pay the plumber to actually do the hookup, but to have the lines at your property. And no, you can't tell them you just don't want to hook up. You have to hook up. You have to pay. You can pay all at once. That's convenient for you, or you can finance it with the financing fee over your tax bill for many years. So that's something that has been happening here since I moved here in the 90s. I think I just wrote an article on the official UEP. I think it was like early 2000s that current plan was actually in place, but this has been going on forever. It's not new. So what happens is a lot of people move to Cape Coral. They hadn't researched that, and they're like, what is this nonsense? No one told me. And so they're angry at Cape Coral, but this is just something that's been going on. It is not, in fact, new. That is important to understand. So besides the city water and sewer, just in the North Cape, just know that you're going to have more empty lots around you. And what does that mean? Maybe you like it because you don't want to have all the neighbors on top of you. Maybe you don't like it because you feel like you're out in the open. Different people have different vibes on that. The other thing that I'd like to mention is that Cape Coral is not like this area is getting built now and then this area. Literally, unless you're in a community, all the lots are pretty much owned by people all over the country, all over the world. So we don't know when they're going to build. Like, you could own a house here with empty lots all around it, and no one might build in the next 10 or 20 years, but somebody might start building tomorrow. Like, besides checking current permits, there's no way to know what somebody that owns that piece of property's plans are. And plans could change, right? So that's important to understand. It's not like where you're in an area and this is being built now by this same developer or whatever. It's all individually owned lots. Okay, so in Northwest Cape Coral, you have Birch Store Road is going to be the divider between canals that have access out to the Gulf and the ones that are going to be freshwater canals. There's actually weirs on Chiquita there and Birch Store that, depending on what area you're in, that are going to separate freshwater from Gulf access. So if you're on the freshwater side, your boat's does not have access out to the Gulf. So if you think that it looks on the map that you have access, you need to be careful and you need to check and make sure that that's not, in fact, not a bridge, but it's a weir and can't go through that. Okay, and then if you're going to go on Old Birch Store Road is going to be the divider between direct access and having to go under bridges. So if you're west of that Old Birch Store Road, you're going to have direct access. Northwest Cape Coral, you're going to have to, depending on how far north you are, you're going to have to go out and down the Spreader Canal, which can take a little while, and you're going to go out at that Matlacha Pass. I will let you know that most of those canals are pretty deep, but then when you get to the Matlacha Pass, that can be very shallow. So you also have to be careful with what kind of boat you have, where the tides are doing, so that you know that depth there. There's also some pretty good current in some areas, so you need to make sure you know how to navigate those areas as well. Now to Northeast Cape Coral. So Northeast Cape Coral is going to have a mixture of homes because there are some areas that people did build homes many, many years ago, but it's still going to be the least built out area of Cape Coral. So it's going to be a mix. There's going to be some older homes, there's going to be a lot of newer homes, and most of the Northeast also is going to be similar to the Northwest and not have city utilities in yet. There are some areas that do have them in. Again, you can look at the map at the city of Cape Coral, you can look at the map. Most listings should say whether they have city utilities or not, but I will let you know that some are in there wrong, so it's important to double check that information. In Northeast Cape Coral, though, anything that's on the water will not have access to the Gulf of Mexico. Only waterfront up there is going to be fresh water, which means it does not have access. Now, there are some really cool lakes up there, so potentially, depending on what canal system you're on, you could maybe get out to a lake to kind of putz around in the lake. There's going to be some fishing. You're going to have freshwater fishing there, which is going to be different. But that's important to understand. Now, when you're looking at Northeast Cape Coral, that's going to be closest to get to North Fort Myers, Punta Gorda, the same thing Northwest Cape, to get out to Punta Gorda, to go up, maybe you use the Punta Gorda Airport. It's very convenient in that regard, versus if you're in South Cape, you'll probably go over one of the Midpoint or South Bridge to go over to Fort Myers and go that way. Also in the North Cape areas, you're going to be the furthest from beaches. So there is technically a beach in Cape Coral. It's the Yacht Club Beach. It is on the Caloosahatchee River. So some people are like, that's not a real beach, but it is a real beach. So it just depends on, your vibe and your style. Right now, it's not beautiful to look at, Hurricane Ian, and then there was a fire at the boathouse. It's really not a lot going on there. The beach is there, there's restrooms there, but everything else has pretty much been torn down, ready for new plans. The rendition, beautiful what's going to be built there, but again, it's not built yet. So understand that if you're in that yacht club area in Southeast Cape Coral, you're going to have a little while before that's going to be a destination point. I would assume once that's done, that area is going to skyrocket. I think it's going to get a lot busier there because it's going to be beautiful. So consider that if you don't really want to be near traffic and those kind of sort of things. So again, Southeast Cape, you're going to be the quickest to get over the bridge to go to Sanibel, Captiva, Fort Myers Beach. So if beach is why you're coming here, you need to understand what that's going to look like. As far as the side of the peninsula that's out to the Barrier Islands, the Pine Island, the Sanibel, all of that, there aren't any beaches there. There is actually, excuse me, in Northwest Cape Coral, technically a beach at one of the parks, and there's a couple areas that they're talking about being like a beach, but it's not really there yet. So you're not getting the beach that you might have the vibe for. But Sanibel, Captiva, Fort Myers Beach are really quick. If you actually look at an aerial map, you see if you are on the water and you're in a boat, how easy it is to get to those islands. And if you're in a car, you're gonna have to go to Fort Myers and down and around. Could be 45 minutes, could be 2 hours. It depends on traffic. So traffic can, yes, be a problem here, especially in season, but depending on where you live, again, consider your lifestyle. Like, are you retired or semi-retired? Are you self-employed so you can make your own schedule? You might not care about traffic. Like for me personally, it's very rare that I have to sit in that morning commute traffic to Fort Myers because I can schedule my appointments for 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. over there. I can, work over here in the Cape until that time and then cross the bridge and there's like literally no traffic. If I sit in that traffic at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., it's going to be backed up. It's just the commute. If you live in a city, you understand traffic. If you come from the country or somewhere where there's not a lot of traffic, it's going to feel like a lot. If you're going to be living in Cape Coral and your job's going to be in Fort Myers, you want to consider that. Do you want to be, really in or Northern Cape and know that traffic's going to take a while each day? Maybe not. Maybe you want to be closer, or maybe you want to look in Fort Myers because you want to be closer to your work. I will tell you traffic in Fort Myers is going to be much busier than in Cape Coral, and that's going to be like throughout the day, just is what it is. Bonita, Naples, it's also going to have traffic. And again, if you can make your commute and when you make your appointments outside of those, couple of hours in the morning where people are going to work and those couple of hours in the afternoon where people are coming home from work, on 75, on 41, it's going to make a big difference in your commute. So yes, one accident or one thing that slows things down is going to be a problem like any time of day, but those morning commutes can be challenging. Off season or summertime, it's not as busy, but it's still going to be people going to and from work. There's not the school people traffic, and there's not the seasonal traffic, but it's still going to be traffic if you need to go over those bridges. So not trying to hide that from you when you see the videos and people are like, she didn't tell us about the traffic. Well, no, I'm just trying to show you a house. Also, those TikTok videos, they're very quick, and I'm just trying to show you what's available in the market. Most of those listings aren't even ours. We're not trying to sell that specific home. We're just saying, hey, look, here's a house, here's what they look like in Cape Coral, so you can get a vibe for it. People also get angry at me because I don't always say the price. Prices can change. I make a video today, next week it gets reduced, next 2 weeks it's sold, so again, it's just to give you kind of an understanding of things. But if you are interested in that home, I can let you know the current price and give you information on it, or find homes that are similar. So that's kind of the gist of those videos. But again, I'm not trying to get into a tangent here. I just wanted to kind of explain these areas. So pricing, I actually just pulled pricing for the last year in all the different areas. So our median price over all of Cape Coral was $374,000 over the last year. The average price was $463,253. The average price per square foot, $305. So that's the whole Cape Coral. So then I divided it into Southwest, Southeast, Northwest, Northeast. Southwest, the median price was $465,000. So that's going to be the highest. And their average price was $567,824. Their average price per square foot was $270.45. In Southeast Cape, the median price was $375,914. The average price was $477,344, and the average price per square foot was $253.65. In the Northwest, the median price was $355,000. The average price was $406,998. And the average price per square foot was $443.58. Okay, now in the Northeast, that's going to be the lowest. The median price was $325,000. The average price was $344,105, and the average price per square foot was $203.61. I'll put a link to this information so you can look at it more in depth. But I did want to explain that to you because you can see that the price differences. And then I broke it down into off-water homes, freshwater homes, and Gulf access. Obviously, Gulf access is not going to include Northeast because there's none that exist. But to give you an idea, Gulf access properties in Southwest Cape Coral, the median price was $789,950,000. The average price was $925,198. The average price per square foot was $382.42. So that's significantly different than considering all of the homes, right? The other waterfront, freshwater, or the off-water homes. Obviously, Gulf access is going to be much more expensive. Okay, in the Southeast, the median price of Gulf access homes was $600,000, and the average price was $734,851. The average price per square foot was $338.63, significantly less than the Southwest Cape. And then in the Northwest Cape, that's going to be our second highest price point for golf access homes. It was $840,000 for our median price and $858,836 for our average price and $364 for our average price per square foot. So that's interesting to see how popular it is in the Northwest Cape. I will say also the reason why those numbers are going to be higher is because you're going to have a lot more newer construction homes, whereas the Southwest Cape, yes, there are some newer construction homes, but there are also some of those older homes, so you're averaging those out into these averages, these medians and averages. So it's important to understand. Freshwater homes, just real quick, they're going to be median price averaging from the Northeast 358 up to the Southwest 515. So they're going to be significantly less expensive than a golf access home. If you know waterfront, just having that view is important to you, but you don't want to spend the price tag for golf access, consider freshwater. Now in off water in the Northeast, it was $315,000. It was actually less expensive than median in Southeast at $310,000. So, but they're very, very close on those off water homes. In the Northwest, that goes up to $340,000, and in the Southwest, the median was $380,000. Consider the averages though, because the averages in Southwest was the highest at $413,189. The Northwest was going to be the second at $359,720, and then the Northeast is going to be the next highest at $329,000, and then the Southeast was going to be the least expensive average off-water home at $324,907. So gives you an idea of what areas you may want to look at. I also went ahead and just pulled out a few key numbers here that I thought were important. So the least expensive golf access home that was sold in Southeast Cape Coral, it was probably just a tear down, like I don't even know that it could have been rehabbed, so just keep that in mind. But it was listed at $224,900 and it sold for $250,000. That was in May of 2025. The most expensive golf access home sold for $4,700,000 in Southeast Cape Coral. It was listed at $4.759 and it sold in October of 25. I think those numbers are important because sometimes people are like, what? I had no idea that there were $1 million homes in Cape Coral. There's absolutely $1 million homes in Cape Coral. Let's continue. So the least expensive freshwater home was a partially built home. It was literally just like some concrete blocks, so you had to completely finish that. And it sold for $105,000 in April of 2025. So somebody's going to finish that up and, have a nice property there, hopefully. The most expensive freshwater home was sold for $1.3 million, and it was in the Tarpon Estates. That's in Southwest Cape Coral. So that's actually a gated community. They're waterfront homes, but this one was just on freshwater. It was listed at $1.49999 and it sold in June of 2025, again for that 1.3 price tag. So off water, the least expensive house was a gutted frame house in Northeast Cape Coral, sold for $90,000 in March of 26. So this was literally like, I don't know if it had flooded or it was a fire or what, but like it was literally gutted to basically studs, concrete, and everything needed to be replaced on that one. The most expensive off-water home was in Freedom Acres. That's in Northwest Cape Coral. It was like on a 2-acre property. They're newer homes. This was actually built in 2021. It was listed for $1.499 and it sold for $135 in March of 2026. So you're getting some property there and a nice big new home. I was just kind of surprised of the prices between the Southwest and Northwest. I do think that as the Northwest continues to grow and is developed, that it could actually, go ahead of the Southwest potentially. They're quite close right now, which is very interesting to see. And again, you got to keep in mind that most of the stuff that's going on there is newer, whereas the Southwest, there's just limited land. Eventually, yeah, people, especially like what they did in the Southeast Cape in the yacht club area and, by the river and things, these old 50s, 60s, 70s bungalow kind of style homes, people renovated, either tore it completely down and rebuilt, or they, kept a couple walls up and then just rebuilt these mansion homes. So that will happen eventually in the Southwest as well, which will raise those prices. You'll have grander homes in those areas. Other thing that I wanted to mention really quickly, because we get this question a lot on those TikTok videos, when they see a new home, they assume that it was because the last home was destroyed. Very, very rare that we have new construction homes, unless it's in like the Southeast or maybe Southwest areas. Definitely not in the north areas. Like, I've never seen it personally. I mean, it could happen, but the reason why they're building a new home is because it was an empty lot. Again, Cape Coral is huge, 120 square miles. It's a big, giant area. There's a lot left to be developed. So speaking of, if you're considering maybe building or owning a lot and maybe holding it for a while, lots are still pretty reasonable in the North Cape. Again, or, similar pricing. As you get into the freshwater, the pricing is going to go up, and you get into Gulf access, of course, the prices are going to go up. But off-water lots in the North Cape are still really, really reasonable, like, $20,000, $30,000 that you could either hold onto that over time or build on it. I really wouldn't suggest building right now. There's a lot of builder and spec homes available. So, there's really, in my opinion, unless you just want something super specific, there's really not a lot of reason to build right now, but you might want to hold that property for longer term and do something with it later. Keep in mind, again, in the North Cape, city water and sewers coming. Yes, you still have to pay if it's just a vacant lot. You don't have to pay hookups till there's something to hook up to, but you will be assessed for having city water and sewer there. And no, that's a lot of information. This video is going to like 30 minutes now, which wasn't necessarily the goal, but I did want to share all of these things with you because it's really important when people come here and, they hear, oh, traffic, or they hear, oh, that area is no good, or, it's busy. Like, some areas are busy, like Southeast Cape Coral is more built out. There's going to be more commercial things to do. Southwest Cape Coral is more like kind of a chill vibe. Northwest Cape Coral is still pretty chill. Northeast Cape's pretty chill. But in those north areas, there's not a lot of like super close like groceries and restaurants and things like that. In the south part of Cape Coral, they're going to be closer to you, but maybe that's not what you want. Like, do you want to have like things to do super close to you? Then you're probably going to have a little traffic. But if you don't really want those things close to you and you're looking more for a quiet area, those exist as well. And again, not everyone has to go out during those trafficy times. So depending on your lifestyle, that might not be an issue for you. Also, depending on what you're used to. If you're used to living in a city and you're used to traffic, you're going to think this is like baby traffic. But if you're growing up, if you're living somewhere that, is super rural and quiet, you might think this is a lot. But again, that might be what you're looking for. So maybe you want to be where it's a lot. But just don't think that all of Cape Coral is the same. That's kind of the point of this. Obviously, values are significantly different in different areas, and the vibe of each area is also going to be different. So it's really important to kind of, what are you moving here for? Are you, young, still working, maybe kids, that kind of sort of thing. You might want to be more near the things. If you're older, you're looking for something maybe more quiet. It's just all what your lifestyle is going to look like. And that's why it's important when you're considering making a move here to have a conversation with myself or one of my agents, and we can go over that, the vibe you're looking for. No, I can't just say this is the best part of town, this is where you want to be. It's what are you looking for your lifestyle? Because everyone's going to have a different opinion of what the best area is depending on what they want around them and their commute and their lifestyle. So that's going to be different for each person. And we also cover all the other areas. So don't think that it's only Cape Coral. Just this video, I wanted to dive into Cape Coral because it's kind of one of the main areas that people have questions about. But Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, Bonita, Estero, Fort Myers, Naples, we can help you in all those areas for sure. My name is Susan Milner. I'm the broker and owner here at Florida Future Realty, and you can go on our website, ycapecoral.com, to learn more about the area. You can read articles and things, and then if you're really ready to start looking at homes, you would go to our website, Florida Future Realty, and you could sign up there to save homes or research different areas and really get a better feel for what the pricing and type of home that you're going to get here is going to look like. I hope that we hear from you soon, and if you'd like to schedule an appointment to chat with one of myself or one of my agents to, really see what this would look like for you, we welcome that. Our phone number is 239-542-8521. Have an awesome day, and thank you for tuning in for this long.